Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Hope everyone is good today. Had a few good shows this morning. If I'm being honest, this show was going to be different. There are multiple issues right now that are taking place in the Middle East that demands our attention and demands our focus. This one I'm just now coming across, but this one is just as severe as the other, if not more so, for the level of flammability that's associated with what is taking place, what's currently taking place. I was going to talk about the Idlib province in Syria originally, and as I started looking over the story, I see a random post about the Strait of Hormuz. Now, to give a little bit of backstory on this, the Iran deal sought to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. That was the thought. That was the pretense. Now, the catch for this is somewhat comical in and of itself, seeing as Israel already has nuclear weapons. It's the biggest secret that everyone has, that everyone knows, that people try not to talk about, but at this point, everybody already knows. So, one place in the Middle East has nuclear weapons. The United States backs that government that has nuclear weapons, gives them billions and billions of dollars, as they have essentially an open-air ghetto on top of another population. But we are told that the savages in that area are the Iranians, and we need to do everything in our power to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapon. Now, to Obama's credit on this, Obama actually was apparently the peacenik of this bunch, and he was the one that wanted to do the Iran deal. Everybody understood at the time that the point of the Iran deal was to prevent Iran from getting nuclear weapons. That was the understanding of it. That was the understood understanding of it. Iran, agreeing to the terms of the deal, was not going about procuring nuclear weapons. Every agency agreed upon it. The only people who were against it was Israel and Donald Trump. But when you're talking about whether or not they stuck to the terms of the deal, the other signatories of the deal has said that Iran has stuck to the terms of the deal. The agencies have said that Iran has stuck to the terms of the deal. Trump pulled out the deal. And pulling out the deal, Trump has put the world on notice that he would put sanctions on everybody. I will put sanctions on the world. Now this is straining credibility. And the reason why I say that is, if you're putting sanctions on the world, who are your allies? You've allied yourself with Israel, who, again, has an open-air ghetto, who's been ethnically cleansing the population of Palestinians that is their land, not to mention the terrorists in certain areas of the Middle East. Those are our allies. And we've been pushing away Europe on this deal, on this issue. Not just this issue, even the Paris Accords. Even the way Trump was interacting with Canada, or Trump was interacting with the countries at the G7 summits. We've isolated ourselves. We're jumping the shark. Fair enough. Associated with this deal, even though it doesn't seem to be connected, is the issue of the Strait of Hormuz. Or Hormuz Strait of the Gulf of Hormuz, which is what I'm showing in the back map. Iran has said that we control this, or we will take this, and we will stop oil from coming out. Meaning, if you're putting sanctions on us, how on earth are you going to stop the oil from coming from us, from this area? Now, if 30% of the world's oil goes through this strait, and you can imagine that if anything happens from the standpoint of oil being able to get from point A to point B, this will wreak havoc on the world's markets, let alone any product that requires that oil. So the battle lines are drawn. Iran has said, we will take this strait, this is ours. And how on earth are you going to try to get some oil out but not get ours out? It doesn't work that way. Iran has been doing military exercises apparently with China. Recently, a few days ago, Iran, as I understand it with the Chinese blessing, has taken the Strait of Hormuz. They've openly said, we have taken this. This is ours. Now, to be fair, they were already in proximity to it anyway, and for all intents and purposes, it was theirs. They've militarily, however, affirmed that this is ours, even to the point of apparently taking or stopping shipments in some cases. This is, let's see. FRN, not quite sure what FRN is, but I cooperated it with other sites. Let's see. All right. FRN has been made aware that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Chief General Mohammad Ali Jafari just hours ago declared that Iran has fully liberated the Gulf and Strait of Hormuz from foreign and hostile subjugation. I wasn't aware that that's what was taking place, but okay. Iran has been conducting drills in the area beginning mid-June and supported by Chinese Navy when the drills went live. This was confirmation of the statement by Tang Ziri, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard's Navy chief, stating the same. Iran has confirmed that any number of friendly and neutral states will continue to have full commercial access to the strategic waterway. China has confirmed its support for today's major move on part of the Iran on Islamic Republic of Iran. If there was any question, it's ours. And China says, fair enough, we support you in that. China was going to back Iran anyway because China wasn't going to stop taking the oil. The United States has gone with this idea that they were going to be able to bring Iranian oil shipments down to zero, which was laughable, seeing as many of the other governments, particularly the big governments, Russia and China, said kick rocks. They didn't break the deal. You did. We're not going to stop using their oil because of something that you did. And on top of this, our European allies have been trying to take steps to keep the deal in place. And by keeping the deal in place, essentially prevent stuff like this from taking place. But in keeping the deal, trying to do an end run around the sanctions that the United States are taking. The economy of Europe is not, they're nowhere near sufficient where they can essentially block all of this. Those are private enterprises. If an oil company in, let's say, France or let's say in the UK decided to do business with Iran, it would endure sanctions. That company stops on its own. So regardless of what the governments of those countries want, the individual private enterprises, those businesses themselves, make a fiscal choice based on their financial interests, in which case many of them have stopped doing business with Iran because of such. The European Union and those countries that were involved in the process of backing the deal to try to continue and keep the deal going don't necessarily have the girth to back up or to prevent all of the companies from pulling out. But they have tried to take steps to prevent some. They're still allowing people to use this, meaning it hasn't hit the fan. Now, the question that people may ask is, what chance does Iran have of keeping this against the U.S. military? Here's more, just so we're clear. I was looking up this part. China and Iran carry out naval exercises near the Strait of Hormuz. Here's another one. Iran just claimed control of the Persian Gulf. Here's how they would defend it. Now, oddly enough, in just kind of a random day, I was looking at information on this came up just randomly, believe it or not, while I was watching a video on this, and how Iran would defend this. Take a look at this. And by the way, there are several problems here. This is a dramatic, big deal. If it ever came to a situation where it came to a head where Iran either stopped a U.S. ship or stopped oil shipments, I don't have to tell you that all hell would break loose. And as a precursor to that, taking the Strait of Hormuz, which is what they did, based on the international issues that are taken afoot or that are afoot, is a precursor to that reality. This is a big deal. This is not minor. And I have another video on this about Syria, which is another big deal. This is Strait of Hormuz. If you can take a look at this area allows a passage through. But if you notice, this is not a large area. The United States will eat you alive if you're dealing with massive ships. Meaning, if this was a conflict, a ship-on-ship conflict where Iranian big ships went against the United States big ships, like these pitched battles like in World War I or World War II, then yeah, Iran wouldn't necessarily stand a chance. But that's really not how Iran is defending this, because it doesn't need to defend it in this way. They're going to use this in the United States. That goes with the idea of whatever the United States is trying to do. Their plan, there we go. Good, I lost access for a while. Iran's plan in this is not to fight a battle like in World War I or World War II. The plan in this is to use smaller ships to swarm the larger ships. The smaller ships are going to have the ability and armaments where they can take down those other ships, meaning with missiles and everything else, meaning you don't necessarily need a big ship to take down a big ship. A smaller ship would do the job just as well. It's going to be asymmetrical warfare. It's not going to be the same on each side. This is going to be an interesting fight if this fight takes place, but you can imagine this is going to be horrendous from the standpoint of foreign policy. This is what's taking place. These are your developments around the globe. Yeah, I have another story on this, so I'm not going to keep this one long. But long story short, Iran has taken the Strait of Hormuz, and it has liberated it. Let's use their words. I don't want to change their wording because I like the epicness of the wording. Iran has fully liberated the Gulf of Strait of Hormuz from the foreign and hostile subjugation. Iran has been conducting drills in the area and beginning mid-June and supported by the Chinese Navy when the drill went live. There's one last point to this. I make allusions to World War I for a reason. World War I had this odd quirk where countries started to align themselves and to create blocks. Not just like one or two, but blocks, where you have one side of the world going against the other side of the world in somewhat of a military conflict. Now, we have what I would argue to be something similar taking place now, where China and Russia, clearly one block, they even work in military alignment with one another. Iran has just been added to the list with China, so China, Iran, and Russia. North Korea can be added to that list. Syria can be added to that list. And most likely, you probably at some point can add Turkey, even though Turkey is right now part of NATO. Turkey and the United States have been going back and forth with these things of tariffs, sanctions, getting rid of the dollar, interest rates. And Turkey's at the point of buying Russian weapons. This is a dangerous point for us. That's a flash zone that can lead very quickly to a larger conflict. Be aware. And by the way, this wouldn't be Iran's fault. It was Trump that broke the deal. It was Trump that pulled himself out of the, or you could say America, that pulled itself out of the nuclear deal. That wasn't them. That was us. Just saying. And by the way, you don't have the rest of the world with you on this. The rest of the world is literally against you on this. So the United States on this has gone alone and has decided to put sanctions on the rest of the world. You know, if you're applying sanctions to the rest of the world, for the most part, you're isolated. The idea of sanctions, I thought, to some degree, was to work in coordination to isolate a particular enemy or particularly a hostile rogue government. If you're applying sanctions to the rest of the world, then you yourself are the hostile rogue government. The problem is you, meaning us. All right, I'll leave it here. All right, I need to take a lunch break, but I will be back afterwards, and I will see you guys shortly. Thanks, guys.